Alright, so this is first test with audio on the Bluetooth helmet. It's obvious that the gain is high. I'm probably going to have to turn that down. We'll see how distorted it is. So for those that are wondering why you would make an investment in heated gear and waterproof heated gear, there are a lot of days in the early spring and the late fall and throughout the winter where the road is dry and passable and generally safe to ride if you keep your wits about you and look for wet leaves, black ice, deer, obstructions, etc. And you can still have a pretty good time. And it's easier to have a good time if you're not freezing to death. And what you can do is build out your heated gear piece by piece, whatever, either by whatever you can afford or whatever gets coldest on you first, and assemble the components over time. If you planned well and you decided all the pieces you want to get, even though you're not ready to get them all at one time, then you'll have interoperability. Like everything's going to work together down the road, so you're not going to be stuck with moving pieces or connections that don't fit together correctly, etc. And that way, if you're on a budget, you don't have to buy everything all at one time, and you can still get in the game and make your overall riding more enjoyable. So a couple things to remember when riding in the off season. First and foremost is, as bad as things are these days with other drivers on the road, they are not looking for you at this time of year. So, all the PSA signs up on the highway, the public services messages like, watch out for bikers and blah, 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 they're not there anymore. And people are inside cranking up the heat, not really clearing the frost and the snow off their windshields real well, doing a lot of other stuff, probably even worse than during the summertime. So just assume that every driver is a distracted driver and not looking for you, even more than usual. Also, especially now during the pandemic, people are preoccupied, people are in a hurry, agitated, aggravated, and generally seem to be driving a lot more aggressively than normal. I'm not quite sure what the issue is. It's around here, it's both people driving well in excess of the speed limit, and I mean like 25, 30, 35 miles an hour over. You encounter somebody like that multiple times in your ride, and just aggressive behavior, not yielding, turning against you. I've seen people running lights. They just got tired of waiting, so they're not going to wait for the signal, not like they're running a yellow. And you really need to watch out for that, because those are the moments that make life exceedingly difficult for those of us on two wheels, and especially in the colder riding weather, because you have less heat in your brakes, you have less heat in your tires. Even a quick stop at a stoplight, for a couple of minutes takes a lot of heat out of your tires. So that affects your ability to maneuver evasively and otherwise with a lot of traction. Just realize, your traction isn't going to be up there like it would be if you were driving on a 75-degree day. But again, you put a little thought into it, a little extra preparedness, Watch out for, like I said, leaves, black ice, Bambi, deer season here. Real bad this year for some reason. Already had numerous deer strikes in the area. But it doesn't have to be all negative. Being prepared, being aware, being alert doesn't necessarily mean a bad riding experience. And honestly, you probably should have that level of awareness and be on your guard, driving defensively that way all the time. Not just during the cold weather riding. And once you're dialed into that, and your heated garments have come up to temp the way you want, and you're sure your charging system's okay, you can really enjoy the ride. I mean, it's beautiful. So I already talked about a couple of the things that that are above and beyond the normal riding that you have to watch out for. So what's good about it? Obviously, with the change of seasons, if you're in an area that has change of seasons where the leaves change colors, that's awesome. And as the leaves start coming down, everyone's like, oh, you got to watch out for wet leaves on the road. And that's absolutely correct. But there is a fringe benefit of that. As the foliage drops away, where it's not all evergreens, you get better visibility. So that blind corner you're always stuck around where that one bush is, always obstructing your view, and the leaves die and fall off of that, you're actually going to have better visibility there than you would normally. You're going to be able to see further ahead down a curved road maybe where the leaves have already fallen, things like that. And once the leaves are already down, people aren't gazing all around at the trees instead of watching the road. So just remember, if you're out there enjoying the pretty colors, so is somebody else, and that means they're not looking at the road, just like the times you're not looking at the road because you're looking at the pretty leaves. So you have to keep that in mind. But when that's all done, you do have that improved visibility in some certain circumstances. And I realize that's a really small win, but just pointing out, like, it doesn't all have to be, not negativity, but you get tired of always hearing the cautionary notes like, hey, let's talk about what's good about riding, and what some situations are actually improvements, and that's one of the areas where there's a slight improvement, and you can learn how to take advantage of it. So, doubling back to the heated gear for a minute, one of the issues you may encounter, and I think it's just a matter of getting used to things, is that when you put on all your heated gear or your layers or any, whatever, sometimes it's really hard to regulate your temperature. And if it's just layers that you're dependent on to give you the warmth you need for the coldest riding that you're going to endure or encounter, however you want to phrase it, you're going to get hot at some point in time. You're going to get off the bike and go inside somewhere or what have you, and having all those layers on, you're going to get hot and sweaty. And the problem with that is if you have any air infiltration anywhere, that's the first spot to get freezing cold. If you watch any of the outdoor shows, where people are working outside or having activities outside, they always say you don't want to get sweaty when you're out in the cold. So your heated gear, it's a double-edged sword. So on the one hand, when you get to a stop, and if all your heat is coming from a heated liner, let's say, and you got some real thin outer layer on, then you're going to get cold quickly when you're off the bike. But on the other side of the coin is, if you are using a temperature controller with high variability, when you're on the bike, you can easily adjust your temp up or down to suit your needs. And, that seems like a, no duh type thing, but you realize how important that can be off the bike too. So if you're going to get where you're going and the wind chill's gone and you're actually going to be pretty much warm enough with just, like I said, like a heated liner and a light over jacket, then you're not going to be all that uncomfortable. If you get off and you got on 5 layers and you're walking around like the Michelin Man, and you get off the bike and you lose that wind chill and you just start to get overheated, it's kind of a detractor, and it's especially too if you get somewhere where you want to walk around a little bit, more than just a scenic overlook. I often bring up the bike rallies as an example. So another way that early spring, late fall, and winter riding can help motorcycling in general is the Toys for Tots runs are usually held off the normal riding season, after the normal riding season when it gets cool out. And it's not that you can't participate in one of those events if you don't want to ride. You can always volunteer. Various groups, they can almost always use some kind of help, and normally won't turn away, four-wheeled vehicle coming up with a donation, with a gift. But you can be more comfortable and go out and participate in something like that as well, and promote goodwill in the motorcycling community that way. There's also, hero rides, or where you do a parade ride past the hospital, things like that. Can really lift somebody's spirits a little bit. Anybody that's had a young one that's been inpatient in the hospital for an extended period of time knows that they're looking for diversions. Even if they can get up and go to the window and watch a group of motorcycles ride by, that's a little something, different than the same four walls to look at. So with all the negative press motorcycling gets, if it bleeds, it leads. It's always nice to see those positive articles and news clips. All right. Well, we have one more time here. I'll give you another update on the heated gear. And my long-term test takeaway from the mobile warming dual power heated pants is I think they're going to wind up being in my hard pass column. The price was really reasonable. The barrier to entry from a cost perspective was low, but there's just a few design elements that don't make it a recommended product for somebody when they have a choice to buy in the same price point, or even if you could throw a couple extra bucks at it and get something that doesn't have these problems. So one of the pluses of the mobile warming dual power heated pants was they have built-in CE armor, which is really cool. A lot of things don't give you any protection at all unless you're wearing, your overpant with a heated liner. So this is kind of an all-in-one solution. The problem is, I don't know what anatomical model they used to place the knee pads, but they are, the CE armor is basically up on top of your knees, almost up on top of your knees when you're in the seated position, but that's really not what it's there for. It's there for when you come off the bike, basically, because you're not that likely to get a knee strike, if somebody hits you on the bike. And again, the way they're positioned is only partially over your knee. But once you're off the bike and standing up, or, if you're flying through the air, almost the entire knee area of the CE armor drops down below your knees, down like around your shin area. So that's not really helping anything. It's not hurting anything. It's just not giving you the benefit that you thought you were getting. The other thing is the power feed for the pant is on the right-hand side of the garment instead of the left-hand side. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but the cord is short, and almost all the heated jackets that I've seen have the connections on the left-hand side. So the mobile warming connector is on the opposite side of where everything else is. So I've got a wire kind of half draped across my tank trying to get over to the right-hand side to plug into the pant. The third item is that the integrated heat controller, I think I've said a couple times, it's 3 positions. It's actually 4 positions: high, medium, low. And low's are really low. It's like 98 degrees, but low power consumption. It's just hard to see in the seated position if you have on a full-face helmet. And again, every time you cut power off to it, it forgets the setting that you had. When you reapply power, it's in the off mode. So you have to, push it multiple times. The problem with that is you can always push it on and then hit it 3 times and in addition and go, oh, I'm on low heat now. The problem I found is, especially with a glove on or something, it doesn't always take the input. So you have to look down and see the color change on the LED to know what temperature range you've actually gotten. And 2 issues with that: one, like I said, visibility of the helmet, because they placed it up so high on your thigh, you can't look down and see it readily. And the other is, it's either not that bright an LED or it's a very directional LED, and it's really hard to see unless you're in a darkened environment. If you're out in the sunlight, it's kind of difficult to see. And the fitment is just not really 100%. There's no fly. There's like a rain gusset or a wind gusset on the front. So you have to, if you're a male, you have to remove the garment, pull it down in order to use the restroom. It is, however, very warm. I mean, even without putting the heat on, it's very warm. The only other critique I would have is it probably could run about an inch longer in the cuff, the inseam. But if you have a higher shank boot, it's really not going to be that big a problem for you. But I think another inch in the cuff would help keep your ankles and your lower shins a little bit warmer. And if you have a traditional heated pant, and this is the other big thing that I have a nitpick about, is you would have a pass-through cord between the top of the pants to each cuff for your heated socks or your heated insoles. And the mobile warming dual power heated pants do not have that. So I've got a Y harness with a wire running down each leg into my boots to connect to my heated insoles. It's workable. It's not really that uncomfortable. It's there, especially when you're up and walking around or you first sit on the bike. But you already have an issue with the wire trying to get to the right-hand side of the heated pants to get power to it, as I mentioned earlier. So now you got this other wire sticking out of here, this long Y harness, and coming up so you can connect power down to your heated socks or your heated insoles that way. So I think there's, just a few fussy things like that make it a pass, all things being equal in the price range and, in the quality construction. If you can get something else that doesn't have those drawbacks, I'd probably recommend that you do so. So, You can live and learn at my expense here. Learn off my dime. Got a new battery in the bike, and was kind of nursing it along for the past, I don't know, 6 months to a year. And fairly recently, it was really acting up. Had some odd things happening on the bike at startup beyond just slow start. So I sprung for a new battery, and she seems pretty happy with it. I don't know whether the ignition's running stronger, but might just be a psychological thing. But to me, it seems like it's running a little better, and obviously my accessories and charging system are much happier. So, bike's a 2016 with the original battery. Date of manufacture was actually August of 2015, and normally this is a Harley Davidson, normally for a Harley battery, it seems like the norm is 3 or 4 years when you're in a mixed climate environment, so when it's going to be really hot and really cold. And that matches with other people's experience that I've talked to locally. So given bike was manufactured in August of 2015, the battery is probably manufactured upwards of a year prior to that, maybe. So that's kind of its lifespan, I guess. And prices have come down a little bit on the traditional absorbed glass mat batteries because people are starting to entertain lithium batteries, which are still pretty expensive. They're not completely proven out yet, although I've heard of really good reviews from a lot of people. So, you can get one delivered to your house from Amazon for under $100. All right, it's the end of our ride.